Hi, welcome to Make Gains, the channel where we break down money, mindset, and moves you can make to level up your life. If this is your first time watching, we'd like to ask you to hit that like and subscribe button. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2025 housing affordability crisis. Let's get into it.
Told myself I would never cry on the internet because I think that's so lame. But I just got our rent renewal thing for our apartment complex, and it's going up by $300 a month. For a one-bedroom apartment that is not updated in any sort of way. And our complex doesn't even have nice amenities. Like, we have a tiny pool and a tennis court. This is not a luxury apartment complex. We already pay, with all the fees included, $2,000 a month, and now we're going to be paying $2,300 for this tiny apartment. And that's so frustrating. I don't understand how people can live in this world anymore, and I just don't want to move again. That's so much work, more money, and it's stressful trying to find another place. And now I feel like I need to get a new job. I just got this job and I like it, but it's not paying me nearly what I need. So now I'm gonna have to go through applying to jobs again, which I did for a whole year until I found this job. So I'm gonna have to go through all of that again. It's just not fair.
It's not fair. I really feel bad for the young people growing up right now who are dealing with this. You hear a lot of people talk about, oh, don't buy. There's a lot of gurus telling you that buying a house is the worst financial decision. But my argument is whenever you buy a house, you're at least somewhat in control of your payment. Now, you are going to have insurance prices that go up, taxes that potentially go up, but your rent prices can go up too. Whoever you're renting from isn't just going to eat those costs. If they're paying for insurance and taxes, they're going to pass them on to their renters. It's a similar situation. The difference is when you own your own home, it's more predictable. No one's going to tell you halfway through the year that your rent's going up as long as you don't have an adjustable rate mortgage. Don't do that, by the way.
Come up with $4,000 by April 20th in order to secure a cheaper apartment that I'm looking into. They want $250 per cat for a pet deposit. Why do I have 3 cats? $120 for the application fee already. I saw someone else do this on TikTok with their student debt. She went live and everybody donated roses and she was able to pay off $20,000 in student debt. I think 1 rose counts as $1, so if I get 4,000 roses, I can move into my apartment. That is more affordable. Do I think this is gonna work? Absolutely not, but am I going to try it? Yeah, because I'm out of ideas.
That's desperation. And yeah, maybe she can get her roses. I hope she does. But that's the thing about social media. You've got all these folks that are asking for money, and many people are giving it. If any of you guys want to donate some money, feel free. I think there's a link below where you can say thanks. But that is not a good way to make it in this world. Can't rely on the generosity of others. We have got to figure out ways to increase our income, which then allows us to pay for the next apartment. And for folks coming up, especially young people who are living by themselves, this is a difficult predicament. You got to come up with $4,000 just to be able to move into a new place. It's tough to do, and it's a hard ask for anyone, especially earlier in their career, who's not making a lot of money. I don't know how you do that kind of thing without taking out some kind of crazy loan. If you have kids living at home, you need to encourage them to start saving when they start working, because they are going to need money to pay for their first place, whether it's an apartment or a home. Okay, for an apartment, you've got to put down first and last month's rent and a security deposit sometimes. With a home, you got to have a down payment. And hopefully you can make a down payment of 20%, which is really unreasonable in today's market, considering the average house prices are upwards of $300,000. So you're talking about coming up with 60 grand. So that might take a full year of saving everything you earn, or a couple, depending on how much you earn, before you can afford a payment like that. And the only situation where you're going to be able to do it is while you're living at home, because you don't have to pay rent and share all those expenses. So save while you can before it gets real. And then you've got to come up with all kinds of crazy ways to pay these things, which you don't want to have to do. You don't have to get a loan so that you can pay your $4,000 deposit to get your apartment.
People are going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their homes. The storm is brewing and it's coming fast. The rate of acceleration on property taxes and insurance is unlike anything anybody has ever seen. People's monthly payments are going up from $1,800 to $2,800, from $2,500 to $3,500. One of two things can happen. You either lose your home to foreclosure because you can't afford that payment, or you try to sell your home so that you can get out of this terrible situation. And the more people that start to now try to sell their homes, the more inventory increases, the more those prices are likely to come down. This does vary state to state, so it's not exactly the same in every state. Some states are in worse situations than others. They said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
I don't think they're kidding either. They did say you're going to own nothing and be happy. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be happy with that. You shouldn't either. Push back against that. The only way we can do that is if we are financially free. And that means that we are not in debt and we're not spending more than we make. So you got to do whatever it takes to get in a position where you can't have people telling you what to do in these types of situations. But what he's talking about here in Florida and in California, it is off the chain with some of these insurance prices and tax prices. Insurance specifically, you've got a lot of insurance companies that are trying to pull out of the state of Florida because of these hurricanes. And this is causing crazy things to happen in the housing market right now. Prices are going down because folks are having a hard time selling their houses. And if you look at beach properties in Florida, I've seen a lot of these houses where folks have taken the insurance payment and chosen not to fix the house. So the house that's for sale is probably $400,000, $500,000 less than what it would have been a few years ago. But guess what? It's got water damage and they've got the sheetrock ripped out from 4 feet below. There's tons of houses like that. Go look at like Clearwater, Florida. You can get what looks like a steal in a house in Clearwater, Florida. And then you look at the pictures and there's no sheetrock on the walls from waist down. That's because those folks took that insurance payment, pocketed it, and said, I'm just going to get out while I'm ahead. A lot of these insurance companies are trying to pick up and move out. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But that's a bad situation to be in whenever your insurance might be skyrocketing because of something like a natural disaster. Those are things that we can't control, but what we can control is our spending, our discretional spending, and we can control our savings. So try to sock away as much as you can just in case something like that happens. You're not in a situation where you can't afford it and you end up having to sell under duress, which is what a lot of folks are dealing with. Same thing's happening in California with some of these fires. Insurance companies were saying, hey, we want to pull out, or we want a rate increase. I think State Farm just doubled their rates in California. If anybody's listening from California, you can confirm that for me. Lots of crazy things happening with insurance. Also, taxes are being reassessed. I had a reassessment here on this property, and it was way more than what I paid for the property is what they valued it at. I can go and say I don't agree, but ultimately they're going to say pay me.
So let me get this straight. We can't afford rent because rent prices are increasing so much to push us out to buy homes. But the interest rate is so high, you can't buy a home. And also you're not going to get funded for a home because of your debt to income ratio. So then what? So then what?
You got to get creative with your living situation. And what we're talking about here is having roommates. Lots of folks are having roommates. That is a way where you can take that price of the 3-bedroom apartment, split it 3 ways. Now all of a sudden you're paying a third for rent. You're also paying a third for utilities, but you're sharing that space with somebody else. And that can be a difficult situation too. I've heard horror stories about that. It is a way where you can make things affordable. It could be a good situation if you're wanting to buy a house and save money while now you're paying a third of your rent. Might be even better if you did that in a 4-bedroom house where you could split it 4 ways. But you need to have really strict rules that people are abiding by before you enter a contract to make sure that people you're entering into this relationship with are going to uphold their end of the bargain and that there's penalties if they decide not to do that.
The housing market has become so unaffordable for most Americans over the past 4 years, and I want to show you what happened. In February of 2020, the average house in this country was $275,000. If you put a 10% down payment and got a 3.52% interest rate, your principal and interest was $1,114 plus $500 for property tax and insurance, puts your payment out the door at $1,614. The average American only needed about $50,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify for the average home in America. That was awesome.
Big
the
difference
American
now.
dream. Now in February of 2022, the average home went up to about $350,000. 10% down, but the interest rates were still 3.73%. So principal and interest was $1,455 plus about $600 for property tax and homeowner insurance. Put your payment out the door at $2,055. So you needed about $65,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify. Still very doable. Now let's fast forward to current day, February 2024. Home prices have shot up to $415,000, 10% down payment. Interest rates are 6.75%, $2,423 principal and interest, $700 for property tax and homeowners insurance. Now you're looking at $3,123. So now you need about $95,000 to qualify if you have very little debt.
That is a huge difference in just 4 years. And so this is why we're talking about what we're talking about. You've got to be creative. You've got to think ahead and save that money, guys. Save it.
Now, what I'm about to say may piss a lot of landlords off, but I don't really care. I'm going to read to y'all the qualifications that this person wants for this house. And it ain't an amazing ass house. We're not talking about anything super expensive. The rent, like I said, is $16.95, $40 application fee per adult. They want you to make 3.5 times the rent. Standard is 3 times the rent. When the majority of Americans don't even make 3 times a $1,600 a month rent. I don't know where people just get up and be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make this a national standard that people have to make 3 times the rent amount. Majority of people can afford 2 times the rent on a basic home like this, but this person is going even further. They don't want you to have 3 times the rent. They want you to have 3.5 times the rent. They want the last 2 years of your W-2s, the last 3 months of your check stub, driver's license or ID, social security card. They want you to make 2 months worth of rent as your security deposit before you even move in, and you have to have a credit score of at least a 670. I'm trying to tell you off the bat that disqualifies so many people from being able to be in a home that is decent.
She's not wrong. This does disqualify a lot of people, but let me tell you why. Landlords are sick of being burned. This happened to me. My wife and I got married. We had a hard time selling the condo that I owned when we got married. We bought a house. We were moving into the house, and I couldn't sell the condo. So what do? Well, we weren't going to keep paying on the condo and the house. I rented the condo for a little while, and I wasn't as strict as I should have been with the qualifications for the people who moved in. So what happened? This young couple moved in. 3 months after they'd been living there, they up and disappeared and said, hey, sorry, we can't pay this anymore, and figure it out. And so I was stuck with having to start all over again. Luckily, they didn't trash the place, but I do know people where they've had their house trashed because people are crazy. I looked at a property that was under foreclosure because the person rented it out, and somebody took a baseball bat to every fixture in the house. Their toilets were cracked in half. Their sinks were cracked in half. I mean, it was crazy. It was thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. My guess is they went easy on their requirements. If you can find somebody who meets those tougher requirements, you're more likely that they're not going to destroy your place. And then whenever you have a higher security deposit, you've got something that you can keep if they do. So it's really just a CYA on the landlord's part, but it does make it difficult for your everyday person, which just compiles with this housing crisis that we're in. So, I mean, guys, the biggest thing that I could tell you, just to wrap this all up, if you're a young person and you're looking for a house, or you're an older person and you've got young people living with you, you need to encourage them to start saving. They need to be putting away as much as they can, especially while they're in a housing situation where they're not having to pay tons of bills. So that way, whenever they get ready to move out, they are ready to pay that security deposit, or they're ready to pay their down payment on a house. So if you got somebody that's starting out and they're wanting to get a house, you got to start socking away money quickly. Otherwise, you're looking at either doing a very low down payment for a house, which means you're going to be paying more in PMI and your payment's going to be higher. You can get a better interest rate if you have a higher down payment. Hopefully you have enough where you don't have to pay PMI, and that makes a huge difference in your payment. Having roommates can help out with that payment. For every roommate that you get to divide that payment once more. And then the final thing, which we didn't talk about earlier, is house hacking. This is actually what I would recommend to my kids. So if you stayed all the way to the end of the video, I think this is a gold nugget. This can be a way that makes housing actually affordable. What house hacking is, if you're really interested in diving deep in the weeds on it, check out, just do a Google search for Bigger Pockets house hacking. But what it basically is buying a house that either is a duplex or a house that has something like a finished apartment over the garage, or a garage that you could turn into a finished apartment, or has a basement that you could make into an in-law suite and then rent it out. It basically gives you one property that you are paying a mortgage on, but there's another piece of that property that you can rent out. Yes, you would be a landlord, but many times you can charge enough rent to where it either covers a large portion of your rent on the house. There are lots of folks that bought a duplex, they're renting out one side, and that covers the entire mortgage. They're able to live basically rent-free. So all they're paying is utilities on the place, upkeep, and then it allows them to save more money. So that's a really good way to start out. And if you're really looking to take advantage of that, you could do something like buying a triplex or a quadruplex. You can still qualify for a loan if you're living there for a first-time home buyer. So a first-time home buyer can get a loan. They can rent out the 2 or 3 other buildings and have their mortgage completely covered by the people living there. And then one day, a few years down the road, whenever they decide they want to upgrade and get a house, they've got a place that has been paid down over the past few years. And then they can rent out all the units, and that can eventually turn into an income producing property, which can give you a great advantage in life. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoy this type of content, please hit that like and subscribe button. We will see you next time. Adios.